Let's bring in human rights activist and researcher at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs, Advocate SiphoMantula. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, we're learning and seeing that President Rajoelina has received overwhelming support. What do you make of his appointment and the role that he'll play?
Evening, Mpo, even to your viewers. Mpo, this is very historic for Madagascar as one of the small islands in the continent to assume the chairpersonship. It is a mammoth task considering of your insight that we have just played now, looking at the issues of conflict in the Eastern DRC, looking at the conflicts in the Middle East. But remember also, Mpo, that the SADC, one of the challenges that they've been going through for the past 45 years, is this question of integration, industrialization, the question also of how to deal with trade amongst themselves. And when you saw that instead of Duma Boko making a maiden speech before the SADC summit, it was to remind all those leaders that it is high time that SADC must trade amongst each other and move away from what we'll call reliance on the West. But I think also Madagascar takes this chairpersonship also under the guidance of South Africa, that come 2026, South Africa will be the incoming chair of the SADC. Also being supported by when I look that for Madagascar, the main challenge that they will be facing is to how to understand also the dynamics around climate change, as they've also been going through cyclones. The second question of energy transition, because the question that that this region needs to have efficient power supply is very important. But finally, I think for them, it will be important how to navigate the conflicts that are within the region of SADC. And hence, as you are playing these clips of DRC, it is very important for them to understand what will be their role in that peace, the Africa Lead initiative in the conflict of DRC.
And as you talk to that, what role do the current global challenges like the geopolitical tensions or even climate change, which you touched on, impact SADC's goals for integration?
It do affect SADC in many forms, that immigration of young people leaving the SADC region to the global north or also to the US. Despite that, we know already what is the attitude of the US towards the SADC countries with this global traffic of tariffs that we have seen. But also the impact on SADC. This is the year where the AU has declared as the year of reparation and the year of access to justice. Is how does SADC member states also look into the global geopolitics of the war on trade that we see on tariffs, the second one being the global conflicts. Besides looking at the Middle East, the conflict that is in Sudan, it is also having an impact on SADC. The conflict that is in Russia and Ukraine also impact on SADC in terms of trade. As you know, that some of the members of SADC, they are part of the BRICS expansion. Others, they've got an interest or an appetite to join the BRICS Plus. So that's how you can look at that impact. But for the youth also, I think when you look at the bulk of the young people in the SADC region are the ones who are facing challenges of unemployment. They are facing the challenges of having a better future and in terms of dealing with poverty and hunger. You look at the conflict in Mozambique that is silent in the media, Cabo Delgado, that the youth and the women of Mozambique are still struggling. So that already affects trade, it affects integration. And finally, I think SADC, has not been doing well with what I call the non-state actors platform, what we call the SADC national committees. All member states of SADC have to have what we call people-to-people interaction. Not only heads of states, meeting amongst themselves and diplomats. We need to reboot the SADC system as the frontline states to say, where is the people-to-people's contact or the national committees that can improve integration and trade?
As you speak about that, and also going back to what Botswana's President Boko was saying, how realistic is the goal of a fully integrated SADC regional market as we examine the factors and talk industrialization and really look at the reality of the impact of U.S. tariffs?
Well, I think they have opted that they should set up their development fund. When I look at the communique, it's a 6-page communication of 33 resolutions, but you can say maybe there are less than 28. But the key one being the one on developmental fund. The issue also of looking at the climate fund, also how to respond to the issues of climate, but also on the issues of the economic tariffs that they are facing from the U.S., that how they must start begin to trade among themselves. I think I have stressed that point that was raised by Botswana. But I think for SADC, the 2050 vision lies on the member states of SADC. What is their national development plans? How do they relate to the SADC Vision 2050? As we talk of Agenda 2063, have we conceptualized the SADC 2050 vision? Why also the SADC Day in many of the SADC states is not being celebrated, it's not being reflected to say what are the gains and the losses of SADC, having been one of the frontline states that liberated many African countries, including South Africa. So it is important for us to look for that in auditing and measuring success of SADC, of regional integration, dealing with trade wars that we are facing now, because you know that most of the SADC member states were hard hit by this tariff. So you recall Lesotho, you will recall South Africa has went through this, Zimbabwe has went through this, and many other countries, they've not escaped this tariff war that is coming from the US, but it goes back amongst the SADC member states. When are they starting to trade amongst themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Human rights activist and researcher at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs, Advocate SiphoMantula.